This one's one of the oldest paintings in here. I think it's 2014, this one. And it's right at the very beginning of this series of this branch of painting that I do. It was at a point where my dad was dying, and he kept getting urine infections, and they sent him loopy. I didn't know there was a connection between a urine infection and your ability to reason, but it's yeah. Anyway, it's a portrait of two different brains, two different brains that have become untangled from each other. So it's sort of a portrait of my father and my mother, in a way, I think. And this is maybe one of the two paintings in this show that have got a very strong kind of narrative to them. All of the brain paintings that I did were related to that idea that a person who's been very bright and articulate can lose all that just through the smallest kind of alteration in their chemistry, which is what I'd found out when my dad was on his way. So yeah, there's something sort of forlorn about them. The smaller of the brains kind of balanced on top of the large one. It's like a mother and father painting. I did some others which were kind of like more extended family ones, family groups as well. And I was kind of agonising over how they related to each other within the picture frame. But this one, it's a little gory, I think, and I'd sort of, this looks sort of like blood or something like that. This actually was just incidental. The tape that you see around here the sculpture's only this big. So the tape was made from that plumber's tape that they use, you know, when it gets wet and you expand it out. It looks like kind of like membrane that might be wrapped around a brain, or kind of the kind of membrane that you see on like offal in a butcher's. So it's a pretty visceral, gory painting. This one next to it, they don't really have much relationship to each other, these two. This was a purely abstract painting, and I think the reason that I've kind of found it successful in the end is I think it had set me on my current trajectory with these paintings, which is where I'd started to treat the paint in a more, it's more painterly, and I'd started to try to find like painted equivalents of things. So rather than kind of carefully illustrating an object and describing it and painstakingly kind of going through the way that it turns and its mass and its form, I think I was trying to paint the stuff of plasticine in a way that was like plasticine, and people like Chardin and Rembrandt and Velázquez kind of tend to be able to do that. It'll be 5 or 6 brushstrokes that convey an enormous amount of information, and then it's not illustrated, it's not kind of taking you through this cognitive process, it just jumps onto your nervous system and you go, oh yeah, I can feel the plasticininess of that. And I think that's what I nailed in this one, and that's the first time I'd kind of done it. So that set me off on the path that the later paintings are on. I'm still really happy when I look at this. I don't think it's the greatest image particularly, but there's a treatment of the substance with the paint that was a first for me. I think it works.